All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Today is entitled Increase Your Business Value with Sustainability. So first of all, like all webinars we do here, we start off with kind of a what's new from Innova before we go into a presentation. And then we'll try to get you out of here within the hour. Feel free to ask questions throughout this. You can use the chat box. You can raise your hand, unmute. We're trying to keep this as casual as possible, as you may have noticed already, and let's have a kind of an interactive conversation as we're doing this. So you might know Chris and I are your key account advisors. We're here to be the smart friend you can rely on. So whether it comes to billing inquiries, energy efficiency assessments, or just basically looking to find some help identifying projects and whatnot to take on, we're here to help you in any way possible there. And so for what's new from Innova, we're having our Follow e-billing campaign right now. Goes until December 13th. It just so happens to be at the same time as the postal strike. We didn't plan it that way, but nevertheless, it's there. So we're encouraging everyone to go to e-billing. It definitely is more cost effective. And then with every e-billing subscription, we are donating $5 to One Roof Youth Services, which is committed to providing safety, support, and overall well-being for youth who are experiencing homelessness, and youth who are at risk of homelessness, ages 12 and 25. Second of all, we have the ISO has published these holiday electrical safety tips. Basically, don't use uncertified products. Use them effectively. Turn them off when not sleeping, or when sleeping or when not at home. I know that's one thing I have to remember. Timers work really well for that. And if you've all seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, it's a great movie to watch for things not to do. Picture on the right there is case in point with her having all those. We probably all had that in our house once upon a time. Multiple plugs into one outlet there. Not safe. And then lastly, you may have heard this, may not, but the Ministry of Energy has issued this letter to the ISO on October 4th, with more to be coming, or more to be announced down the road. But basically, they're calling on a new framework starting in 2025 that's going to be rebranded as EDSM. You may be familiar with the old language CDM, Conservation Demand Management. But now that's been kind of updated to align with other jurisdictions. And then the framework has also been expanded to be a longer term. So 10-year gives certainty to the marketplace, gives certainty to customers that there is going to be funding available for them. There's also going to be enhanced LDC involvement. So we might have some local programs or initiatives here to help address constrained areas. As you can imagine, the electrical load increasing throughout the province and in every community, we're going to have to take kind of drastic measures to make sure that that power, that capacity is available when we need it. And energy efficiency programs are one of the most cost-effective ways to reduce the costs on the electricity system and defer the need to build new infrastructure like gas peaking plants. So that's the one way that we can kind of keep up with the demand is by burning natural gas. But unfortunately, by doing that, we're then also adding to our carbon in the environment and kind of doing, it's great to have all these electric vehicles that are taking gas or getting off the gas, but then if we're creating electricity using gas, then it kind of defeats the purpose. So we're hoping that energy efficiency and conservation, as well as some other initiatives, that we can curtail that demand and have that supply that's green and clean. And just a reminder that the current framework ends at 2024. So if you have any projects that you want to kind of get in last minute, basically at the end of this year to submit an application with the end of next year, 2025, as the completion date. Okay. The other thing too with the new framework is there's going to be a clear focus on environmental sustainability, which would be then again getting off the gas if possible. So last webinar, we ran a poll, and the poll was, what topics do you want to see us present at future webinars? Like we had mentioned, we like to learn along with our customers here. So we definitely want to hear from you, know what kind of topics to seek out and bring to present here. Um, and top of the list was efficient electrification and decarbonization. Those terms can also be interchangeable with sustainability at the same time. So uh, this is our first webinar since that poll, and this is what we decided to present on. So without further ado, let's get to the meat and potatoes of things. So today we have Tova Davison is the Executive Director at Sustainable Waterloo Region and leads the initiatives that engage businesses and organizations in reducing their environmental impact. And we also have Sanders, who's the co-founder and CEO at Carbonhound, and he leads efforts to develop innovative tools and strategies that help organizations track, assess, and manage their carbon footprints with precision and efficiency. I hope that sums it up well for you too. Take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to start. So let me, if you don't mind stopping sharing, and I will share my slide.
No problem. Yep.
Um, I have to say to everyone that when Andrew said, "Do you have a bio?" I'm like, please don't use a bio. Can you just say the things you know about me and
Mm.
we'll go from there? He's like, no, I have to follow your bio. So thank you for keeping it short. Can you see my slides?
Yep.
Great. So, really happy to be here. I'm going to just take maybe the first 15 or 20 minutes and talk a bit about the benefits of sustainability in business. And then Sanders is going to jump in, and we are partners in this work in the region and in our full catchment area on helping organizations be more sustainable. I love this topic because to me, this is the perfect place for organizations to understand the benefits. Some of you may have heard of SWR, some of you may not. We were founded in Waterloo Region 15 years ago. We're a social enterprise nonprofit and founded as Sustainable Waterloo Region. We now use SWR because over time there's been demand and requests for support outside of Waterloo Region. So we serve Guelph, Wellington, Oxford, and Perth counties, as well as, of course, Waterloo Region, where our deep roots are founded. And as I said, we're a social enterprise nonprofit. So that means we support ourselves like any other business, not affiliated with any government or municipal groups specifically, but work well in partnership with them, as well as the LDCs and other groups like that, like Inova. Our work is in the area of organizational sustainability and community level sustainability. So we don't work in residential at all, but we do work in the area of how would an individual organization, be that private sector, public sector, or other nonprofits, how can they be less or better businesses, better organizations through sustainability? And we'll talk about all the different ways that that happens. As I already said, here is the catchment of our organization now, founded Waterloo Region. And it's one of my favorite things to say that I actually think that while Waterloo Region might not be the most sustainable community in Canada, there's other places that might try to take that crown. I believe we are where sustainability innovation happens, just like the other kinds of innovation that we are so proud of in this community. And I think it's founded in that idea of we all work together. And so this amazing partnership between Inova, Carbonhound, and SWR is a great illustration of that, working together to be better and to be building a better future together. If you haven't heard of us, here's a little bit of information about the work that we do. This is just a snapshot of a single year. What was the impact that SWR had? We work with lots and lots of organizations. 40,000 plus employees are represented throughout our programming. We plant trees. We work with volunteers. We work with schools and students, all of that sort of thing. And that bottom line is one of the areas that I am really going to focus on. That is the number of tons committed through a program called the Impact Network. In 2023, the member organizations of that network committed to reducing 74,927.9, I love the 0.9, data matters, tons of carbon, and actually reduced more than 94,000 tons of carbon. And this is often through work like fuel switching, energy conservation, going to electrification. So really proud of those numbers. So let me tell you a little more about that program. The Impact Network is what SWR was actually founded around. And some of you will know our founder, Mike Morris, who's now the MP for Kitchener Centre. As a student, he and two other students, Chris and Miles DePaul, thought that there was a better way to approach sustainability when Kyoto actually fell apart. They were disenfranchised with what was happening in the international movement and thought we can make change happen locally. And so this program is all about helping individual organizations and businesses to move towards a better sustainable future. There's a process that we actually undertake, but this process would be the same whether you work with us in our area or you're doing this on your own in your own organization. So if you think about all of the work that you do, the foundation of sustainability work really is to understand what your goals and your needs are as an organization. Why are you doing this? Why does it matter to you? What are you trying to get out of it? And what barriers or issues is your organization facing now, whether there's sustainability or not? We like to start with the more fulsome thought of what is it you're trying to accomplish as an organization overall? And then we use that to frame a lot of the work that we do in partnership, because this needs to be an integrated element of your strategy overall. Next, you'll see this little section here where we talk about a baseline, and that is where the data starts, the work with data starts. And we know that organizations measure what matters to them and then they manage what they measure. And so foundationally, putting together your business goals and needs with what is your current impact is the foundation of how you're going to move forward better. We then actually help to set targets. You're going to see all over the place that organizations have targets. And those targets can be things like we want to be net zero, or we're going to go to 100% renewable, those sorts of things. Targets are really important. It gives an organization something to drive towards. And we see that in other parts of good management practice. It's the same in the sustainability practice. We then actually get an agreement signed and we publicly report all of those good things. But if you're thinking about sustainability in your business, this is a really good way to align it. Because if you think about the foundation is what your strategy is, what your business needs are, buy-in from senior leadership, buy-in from your customers, from your value chain. How do you work across? How do you understand how this is going to benefit you and what your risks are? Then you have your data, set a plan and a target, and then make that target happen. Please interrupt me, put your hand up, or just unmute and start to talk if you have a question about any of these steps. We typically work with organizations in one of three areas, and they can actually be interlinked. We would work in the area of carbon, which is actually primarily energy. The bulk of your greenhouse gas footprint comes from your energy use. And so that is foundationally where we started, and it is the area we work on most often, even now. What we see is that reduction in energy use is often reduction in carbon. However, energy is different, and so things like reduction in your fossil fuels, of course, makes a bigger impact on your greenhouse gases. We also look at waste for organizations for their diversion as well as their total waste reduction. And waste is closely tied to carbon. It can be in the transportation of waste. It can be in the processing of waste, all of that sort of thing. So sometimes they are embedded within each other and sometimes they are measured separately, depending on the materiality. And I'll get into that in a second. And then we also sometimes look at water. And water can be stormwater, water consumption, wastewater. It can be your grounds. It can be things like cisterns. It can be bioswales. It can be how much hardscape versus softscape you've got. And actually in Waterloo Region specifically, if you have some of that green infrastructure, you can save money on your water bill through some of these things. I mentioned earlier the idea of materiality, and this is a big piece of what we talk to organizations about and for you to consider on your own sustainability journey. What we see is that we need to find the place where an organization has both significant impact and control. Because it's one thing to say there's big impact in a certain area, but if there is no operational control by that organization in that area, then it becomes really difficult to make change. And tie that to the impact to the business, whether it's a high cost line in your budget, whether it's a risk exposure. This is the very important piece that we're looking at. So we will work with organizations to figure out where their materiality is, where their return on investment is, and where the alignment with their strategic goals as an organization are. We do measure and publicly report how organizations are doing, but only after they give us permission to do so. We would never publish someone's data without their permission. And this is really looking at the areas where they have already set targets and they are working towards this. So what we see here is one organization actually has all three targets. So they've got a greenhouse gas reduction target, a waste diversion target in this case, and a water reduction target. I don't know if anyone knows AET here. They've done some pretty innovative things. And this is a bit of an older, I think this is a 2022 frame. We don't have the 23 numbers here, but it does give them a good way to see how they're doing. And the data that we share is aggregate, but they, of course, as you're going to see when Sanders starts to show the tool that we use in partnership, they will actually see more granular data than this. If you are coming to this call, not from Waterloo Region, Guelph, Wellington, Perth, or Oxford County, because I understand sometimes that is the case, there was another nonprofit that SWR created and launched in 2014 called Green Economy Canada. And Green Economy Canada's work is to take the model of what SWR does in this program and help other communities create similar programs and offer these supports in other areas besides the area where we are operating as SWR. So if you are not in this area, I encourage you to go to the Green Economy Canada website and take a look to see if there is a hub close to you and if there are supports that can help you on this journey. So here's the thing that we really want to talk about. What are the business returns on investment for this kind of work? And I believe I have 6 that I've chosen to highlight today. There's a whole slew of them. So let's get into why a business would do this, because I get a lot of this question. Why are businesses doing this? What is the benefit to them? The first and the one that most people think of is a reduced operating cost. For the bulk of the work that we work with organizations on, the thing that they're interested in is reducing their energy use. And energy reductions means impact reduction. The two go hand in hand. They're not the same thing, but they tie very closely to each other. And so what we see is that lower energy bills and less energy consumption means lower cost of operations. And that is a really good return on investment. We often work with organizations to consider life cycle costing of projects. So you're not just looking at what is the capital difference, and you're not looking independent of what the operating difference in those two choices when you're doing building renewal, for example, or procurement of processing equipment. What we're looking at is those two things together. It's interesting. A lot of people assume as an environmental organization, we're coming in and we're talking all about solar panels. But in fact, the thing that makes us happiest is to talk about windows and insulation and HVAC systems and all of those good things, because those are the foundation of a lot of this work. Only after all of that, then we can talk about solar. But let's talk about energy savings and consumption. Next is unlocking new revenue streams. We are definitely seeing that there are high demands in the marketplace now for green products. And a lot of organizations are considering the ways that they change their operations or their production systems to be able to have a green product to bring to market. This helps with their unique value proposition, their differentiation in the market, and attracting new businesses and retaining existing customers and clients. It also can be a work that you do across a value chain. So you're not just looking at what is the work that you're doing, but across your suppliers all the way through your process to how are you getting to a total product that is actually lower impact and to drive customers your way. Employee attraction and retention can be a major driver, especially in sort of what I think of as the creative economy or intellectual work. So if you think about organizations like law offices or tech companies, they often are very concerned about attracting and retaining employees. And the workforce now wants to work places that are aligned with their values and not just in their claims of values, but more in their implementation and their action. So this often ranks very highly in the list of priority areas for your employees and for people you're trying to recruit. Employees are the lifeblood of any organization, and so keeping them engaged is a really good thing to do. And just as an aside, one of the things we do talk to organizations a lot about is the benefits of building a green team. And we've actually seen some organizations use their green team as a place where they encourage and foster leadership with young professionals in their organization. They become the head of the green team. They learn leadership skills, how to make good business cases, all that sort of thing. And it's a great place for them to get ready for further leadership opportunities. Excuse me. I love this one. I think this is a really interesting impact of sustainability on an organization. One of the things that we actually see is that organizations that really deeply commit to sustainability become more innovative. And they become more innovative because the standard operating practices of their sector are not sustainable. They've seen that through their data collection, and it drives them to consider how they do business. And actually, in the long run, they actually are innovating all the time. It builds a mindset of innovation, which creates a strong shift in how they operate overall, not just in their energy products and in their sustainability projects, but overall their organization becomes more sustainable. This one is a big favorite of leaders in businesses, reducing your risk exposure. Right now, there's a lot of risk exposure that comes from the environmental impact and the environmental uh, sensitivities of an organization. There can be reputational risk issues, regulatory and reporting risk issues. There can be revenue risk, so losing customers if you are not doing the due diligence. And we actually have a great relationship and partnership actually with Explore Waterloo Region. And I recently heard from a local hospitality sector member saying that they had outreach for a big contract for something. And one of the questions, and this is something that sector is seeing all the time, was what are you doing in the area of sustainability? And they were not able to secure that contract because they could not make verifiable claims and verifiable action in sustainability. So this is becoming a really big piece for organizations to look at. It can also be the risk of your physical building. You know, if you are not dealing with water on site, for example, and flood risk, all of these other things. Andrew, I see that the chat is coming up and I don't want to skew this. So if you see questions there, please just ask them. I'll just continue unless I hear from you. Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Data-driven green branding is a really big one as well. What we've actually seen is that there's lots of claims of sustainability from organizations, but it's not often backed with data. And as I said earlier, organizations measure what matters to them and they manage what they measure. So organizations that make green claims without sharing the data actually put themselves at risk of greenwashing and being sort of pointed to as an example of greenwashing. Greenwash is when there is an environmental claim that is either wholly untrue, highly exaggerated, or unsubstantiated. So this is a really important thing, and this is what Sanders is going to start to talk about in a minute. How are we looking to make sure that there is data behind the claims that you're making and verifiable, credible data? So that's a good segue to move over to Sanders to start to share. And I just want to frame the introduction over. We are so proud of the partnership that we have with Carbonhound and proud to have been their very first customer back as they were starting up. As a local startup, we saw or not local, but as an Ontario-based startup, we saw the incredible work that they wanted to do to make really good, high-quality carbon accounting accessible, easy, and understandable to organizations. And so really proud that every member of our network has access to this tool you're about to see and the great resources that they bring. So thank you, Sanders and Lauren, for the great partnership, and I will let you take that away.
Thank you very much, Tova. I think, when we think about the important role that SWR has played in our journey, but also I think in all of the journeys of your members, it's been pretty incredible to watch. And we've got a front row seat to that because we get to see all the data as it comes through as well, which is super exciting. And so what I want to start on is I think a lot of people look and say, okay, oh my God, how am I going to go and actually do this? There's all these benefits here, there's all these risks, but what does it actually mean for my company? And do I need to hire somebody to do this? Like, you know, how do I actually action it? And so what I want to talk about a little bit today is just show you a little bit around our platform. And where I want to start is actually one of the main points that Tova brought up, which is why do we bother with this at all, right? Like, why does it matter? Why is it important? And how do we get, more importantly, maybe how do we get budget for this so we can actually do it properly? And I think SWR does a great job of really reducing the cost massively to take those first steps. But often when we make decisions as a business, it has to align with the strategic priorities of the company as well. So when we start talking about top line revenue risks, like how do we actually get a better understanding of what that looks like, right? And so one of the things, this is very early access, but I just want to share it with you is, okay, how can we get an understanding of what the actual potential impact is of inaction on our bottom line, right? So this is something, again, very early access. So what we do is we can actually integrate with your CRM. This is all dummy data in here. Um, and what we can do is we can pull through your customers and then show you which ones are going to be regulated, right? So if you're dealing with typically any international supply chains, there's a lot of regulation that's coming downstream. For example, we've got auto part manufacturers who are selling to Ford in the US, and they're being required to disclose their emissions because in the EU, there are importing tariffs based on how much carbon you're importing effectively. So a lot of companies see their biggest customers asking for data, and not just data like as Tova mentioned, verified data, right? So I'm just going to start this off because I think it's quite interesting to see, okay, what are the different companies that we've won deals with, that we've lost deals to, that we have in our pipeline that might get caught up in procurement and therefore might not be able to close. So I know there's probably a lot of energy management people here, but I think what I'm trying to do is like, how do we connect your mission to the broader strategy of the business so that you can get the resources you need to be able to take action on this, right? And the reporting requirements can be a big part of that because as we start to look at the materiality of the revenue, the top line revenue risk that we see with many of our customers, all of a sudden, when you look at the ROI of your energy efficiency project, it's not just about reducing carbon or energy, rather, it's about reducing carbon and then understanding how that impacts your ability to attract and retain new customers. So, how do we bring this to your CFO and say, hey, this is why we need to invest in this. It's not just about an 8-year payback, let's say, on solar or a 2-year payback on replacing our lights. It's actually also about how we can use this advantage strategically to win more business and retain existing business. So next, I'm just going to move on to kind of okay, so we got the so what. I think Tova's done a great job of saying why we need to take action. So now we need to actually do something about it, right? And the first step to her point is always about how do we quantify and get an understanding of what the state of play is today. And so Tova's team is fantastic in supporting you throughout this process. We try to make it as easy as possible through our technology as well. So if you're an office-based business or you have office-based operations, there's a really simple kind of wizard-driven process here to walk you through the different steps of how you can actually understand the emissions, whether it's engaging with your employees, as Tova was mentioning, to get them involved in entering in their commute details, which is a fun way to create engagement. Whether it's starting to look at expenses and tracking how much your flights are impacting your emissions, which can be quite material for certain types of businesses. Or whether it's setting targets for your organization as part of the program and starting to track against those. So what we try to do is make it really simple for folks to be able to kind of onboard themselves and make sure that they're getting the appropriate emissions tracked in the platform. But as we know, every business is unique, right? So the other thing that Tova's team works on is how do we take the unique aspects of the operations of your business to help take that into account when measuring your carbon footprint, right? So configuring the platform to make sure that you've got all of your locations, your emission sources. You might want to sort out your emissions by business unit, collection, or even by intensity metrics. So if I want to compare myself, to a larger company, obviously you can't do that directly, right? So how do we compare by employee, like per employee or per dollar of revenue? Or maybe you want to look at specific lines of business and get understanding and create custom reports based on the production line that you're managing, or maybe based on a region or location as well. So all of that is possible through here. You can even, let's say we've got this is Gus Treats Co. So this is actually the treat company of our mascot, Gus, who's a dog, obviously, because we're Carbonhound. And so he runs a treat company, and they have a lot of fruit in their manufacturing process, and the jams and stuff that they're putting inside. So we actually have the ability to show our customers, okay, here's the data coverage. Like, you have complete data coverage. Where are you missing information? You can see all of the data that's been entered from their billing systems. But more importantly, you can actually add this information yourself, or we also have the ability to integrate with a huge number of uh, data providers. So the reason why I mention this is because often the data aggregation is the biggest headache when it comes to preparing this kind of reporting, and also the source of all sorts of challenges as it relates to translating it and manipulating the units, and really trying to figure out how do we get this into a format that can be translated into carbon dioxide equivalents, right? So we do all of that for you through this kind of data concierge. So you can either forward bills directly from your ERP or accounting system, or some people just set up all auto forwards. For one company does their Staples bills. So we get all of the 30% off discount forward emails as well, all the marketing emails, but also all of that data. And so we just take care of it for them. And we can really integrate with any type of web-based platform. So you can simply enter in your credentials. We can log in and scrape that data for you, QA it, make sure that it gets the appropriate emission factor assigned to it as well. So really, this is about the majority of the data that comes into the platform now comes in through these kind of automated data services that we've created. And as a result, it makes it a lot easier for you to manage this alongside all of your other priorities, so that you get that high integrity reporting without having to spend all that time and effort to do so. So that means that you can really start focusing on the things that really move the needle as it relates to the carbon emissions reductions. So thanks to our relationship with SWR, we've actually pulled in what they call their idea book. So we've got a bunch of different initiative templates that get recommended based on your industry. And the cool part is that you can actually see so you can see this is contributed by Sustainable Waterloo Region. You can see case studies of different organizations and studies that show the benefit of some of these playbooks, if you will. We also try to highlight different, energy providers or what have you, that programs to help you pay for some of these products or projects, I should say. And then we also allow you to start tracking how you're doing against, so as you go through those initiatives, you can actually see how you're tracking against the goals that you had for that particular initiative, and make sure that you're on target in terms of the outcomes that you were looking for. So that's kind of how we start to get you moving towards those reductions. So, obviously working with Tova and the SWR team, they're critically important in terms of actually helping you identify and manage which projects are the most important ones, maybe to you based on the materiality assessment, and working with your team to really empower them to leverage the platform and track your emissions effectively. We also help you with the data quality side of things, but more importantly, it really comes back to how do we translate this into actionable insights? So whether it's looking at our Carbon Explorer, where you can go through and see exactly where emissions are coming from by source, even by sometimes so you can drill down into these and see exactly where those emissions are coming from. You can layer on your targets here. You can also do reporting by all those different things that we discussed, including benchmarking, which I think is quite interesting. So if you want to see how you're doing compared to, let's say, a Kraft Heinz, you can really see how your emissions might compare to a peer. And so when it comes to thinking about different strategic opportunities, looking at businesses that have made, in this business insights category, right, that have made these commitments and are being regulated, combining that with the benchmarks that you're seeing here, you can start to see how your business can start to build a competitive advantage around sustainability and really help drive additional value for your customers. And so that's really what we're trying to do here. And obviously, when you've got customers that care about climate, they also care about meeting certain reporting requirements that are going to be required from them every year. So we try to support with a bunch of different reporting types that are the most common that we see across a bunch of different industries. And we can help support in helping, fulfill those data requests that you're seeing from your customers as well. And primarily the way that we see it is most of our customers are doing this because their customers are asking for it, right? So it's not only, good for your business, as Tova mentioned, in terms of helping you cut some costs, but it's also helping you address material risks across the board from top line revenue to, even access to capital moving forward is going to be dependent on your ability to report your emissions because OSFI sees climate risk as a key risk when it's looking at the loans that these banks are taking on, right? So it's going to start to impact every piece of your business. So there's going to be companies that look at that and take a reactive approach. And what we try to do is work with SWR to help companies take a more proactive approach and turn that risk into an advantage, into a competitive differentiator. So yeah, I think that's everything I kind of wanted to cover from our side. Really, I think the key piece here is make sure that you've got data processes that are ideally automated or consistent, because that's going to be the thing that's going to really drag you down and take you away from the work that you want to do that is incredibly valuable. And then how can we help you translate the work that you're doing into broader, higher level strategic goals for those businesses to unlock bigger budgets and bigger opportunities for you to scale the impact of your organization. I think over to you, Andrew. I'm not sure.
Yeah, great, fantastic. Thanks for the rundown of that for sure. Just one thing that came to my mind that you guys were talking about, and Tova mentioned it too, about water, and the fact that maybe just a moment to chime in about the Regional Waterloo's WET program, they call it. So there are incentives available through the Regional Waterloo. They're just itching to give out the money, to be honest with you. So those are available to do some water projects to reduce your water consumption. Because from what I'm hearing from our customers too is it's not gas, it's not the price of electricity that's really you know the major component. It's the water cost that's really impacting businesses the most, it seems. So so if you can find ways to kind of nail those three all together and get some incentives for it as well, then all the better for you. Any questions anybody has? I know that was a bit to digest. Sanders did a really great job of wrapping it all up in one little package. But if you guys want to see anything else, maybe we can dive into some details more. Okay, it's a question in the chat here from Roman. Nova have a map of restricted feeders on their website. And are there any plans to address this challenge in the near future to ensure that customers interested in adopting solar and reduction their CO2 can have the opportunity to do so? Actually, Jeff, if you're there, if you want to chime in about this one.
There is a map on our website. I'm going to try and get the link for you guys and drop it in the chat. So there is, I wouldn't say we have, downtown cores are always a bit of the challenging area. So there is maps available. And like I said, I'll drop them in there. What was the second part of the question, Andrew?
Any plans to address this challenge in the near future to ensure that customers interested in adopting solar and reduction to their go to can have the opportunity to do so.
Well, we're doing our best to address any capacity constraints that exist out there, but any upgrades to systems to accommodate for this have to be borne by all of our customers. So we have to do it in a cost conscious manner, not to overwhelm uh, the customer base as well. So we're addressing them as they arise, if they arise, when they arise. But we can't foresee everything and all the circumstances that happen because people change their mind and do different things, and they don't always contact us. They make decisions and enter contracts before having conversations. So my suggestion is customers contact Innova and have conversations about what their plans are, and work with Andrew and Chris and our engineering departments to help us understand what they're doing. I think there's a major misconception that we know what's going on behind your meter. We don't. And you need to work with us to help us work with you on understanding what are your needs, what are your growth plans, what are you looking at for solar, when is the timing on this, because all of that is critical to our plans and our infrastructure upgrades and things along those lines. Hopefully that answers your question. And I'll
Yep. Thanks, Jeff.
Andrew, do
Yeah.
you want me to just share a little anecdote from a couple of members of things that they've done?
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, a lot of organizations worry about sustainability work because they feel like it's going to cost them extra. And so, one of the things that we often work with our contacts and champions on is the integration of your sustainability, energy management, and building renewal and fleet renewal plans. Oftentimes, this is where the sweet spot is. The work isn't often to take something you've just recently done or replace equipment that doesn't need to be replaced, but the replacements, when the time comes to be done, should be a like for better instead of a like for like replacement. And putting all of those plans together can be a really good way to get to sustainability in an accessible way that is more affordable, that is understandable by senior leadership and decision makers, and makes your CFO happy. So we really like that intersection. And there's a story I love to use of a local company. It was a steel fabricator, and they were losing money hand over fist as their loading bay door was open. Anybody here who has a loading bay door, you know what a hit it can make on your energy costs for space heating. And they tried so many different things to try to get those doors to close and to reduce their heating cost. Cost was about $5,000 a month in the winter. And they tried to incentivize their staff to shut the door, didn't work. Change processes, didn't work. Change layout of the plant, didn't work. Had someone try to sell them an air curtain, but they had it's a small family-owned business, did not have the funds to do that. Instead, they have actually worked with an electrician and had a limiting switch put on, which meant that when the door was open, the heat got set back significantly. So the space got cold, and then the person shut the door. Smart, right? I love this. What happened actually was the next month when their heating bill came in, their bookkeeper actually came into the plant and said, "You're never going to believe this." Their heating bill with that limiting switch, which cost them $1,100 to have put in, took their heating bill from $5,000 to $500 in a month. It was an 8-day payback. Sometimes that's the kind of thing we're looking for. This isn't necessarily complicated. It's looking differently. And that's what I was talking about with the driving innovation piece. I'm lucky enough to be sitting in the Evolve One building right now. Was done actually with lots of conversations of partnership with Innova. It is Canada's very first net positive multi-tenant office building. And it does generate typically more than 108% of the energy that it uses. But it was only between 5 and 8% more expensive than building a standard Class A office building. So I just share these examples so that you can start to think of this differently. Instead of it's going to be so much more expensive and it's going to be so hard for us to do. Actually, think of all the ways it's going to make your business better. It's going to save you a whole bunch of money if you make some changes. If you look at the data, the incredible data you can get from a tool like the Carbonhound tool that we offer, it actually allows you to make good informed business decisions. So I just wanted to share those examples and to give some inspiration at the end of the webinar so that people can go away from this call and think about the ways the future can be so much more prosperous for their business and better for their employees through sustainability action.
And I would definitely agree and also chime in to say that, people make the difference, right? The little small changes, incremental changes add up to a bigger picture. You don't necessarily have to, find the big whale or the big fish to go after and get the latest, greatest state-of-the-art technology, only to have your operators put it on bypass because they don't know how to use it. So this is where people definitely come in and definitely make the difference. And I think the little small changes, whatever you take away today, know that what you do can make an impact. And together, all those little small impacts that's add up, and hopefully, help us achieve our goal to decarbonize and to create capacity on the grid. So, and with that, I think if there's any other questions, if there isn't any other questions, we can wrap up today. I just want to say thanks to Tova and to Sanders for your insights and your presentation. Definitely appreciate you guys being here today. And for everybody else that's joined us today, again, we just try to run these webinars so we can kind of bring this knowledge collectively to each other and be able to make our lives and our businesses that much better. So feel free to drop us a line. We'll be sending out this presentation later on. We'll put the recording on our YouTube video. And by all means, drop us a line anytime to chat about what's coming up and what ideas you have. If we don't have the answers, we're more than happy to find people that do and make those introductions. So with that, I guess this is probably our last one before the holiday break. So we'll say happy holidays. So it looks like we're going to be having a green Christmas. Knock on wood that it doesn't melt like tomorrow, but like it does. But wish you all a happy holidays, and that's it. Take care.
Thanks very
again,
much, everyone.
Tova, Sanders.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you.
You as well.